support comes from the South Dakota Agricultural Heritage Museum in Brookings, inspiring a passion for the diverse history, culture, and science of agriculture in South Dakota. To learn more about exhibits and events, you can visit agmuseum.com.
Welcome into First Bank & Trust Arena. I'm Ben Anderson with Collegiate Sports. It's the Jackrabbit Spring Tournament here for volleyball. Minnesota and Creighton visiting Brookings today. The Jackrabbits defeated Minnesota earlier today, 2-1. We play 3 sets here either way. Minnesota just played Creighton in between these 2 games, and Creighton defeated the Gophers there. And now the Jackrabbits facing off against the Blue Jays now. Riley Martin will serve first into the Creighton end, sends back a spike. Aaliyah Schlimgen able to pick it up, and Madison Burr sends it the other way. The Jackrabbits on the board first. It's going to be 1-0 in the first set for the Jackrabbits. Now, Creighton was not gracious enough to wear their numbered jerseys for me, so I do not have their faces memorized, so I'm going to try my best. But again, Creighton not wearing numbers. I'm sitting up in the 200 level here from the press box announcing this one, so can't really see who's playing for Creighton. But I've got the Jackrabbits. That should be pretty interesting. Sorry if you're listening in from Omaha. Riley Martin serve again. Here it comes across the line. Creighton down for the kill there on the near side of the net. Serving is Creighton. The Blue Jays awarded that previous point. Back across, that's picked up by Van Ingdam. Here comes a spike across. Madison Burr with the kill there. Makes it 3-1. The Jackrabbits lead it by 2 here in set number 1. Jackrabbits have switched over. They're wearing yellow now. Got started a little bit early here. Game was set to tip off at 3:30, 10 minutes prior now. Sconce with the serve. Creighton's got it. Tip over, and that one goes out of bounds untouched by the Jackrabbits. The Jacks will get the point on the attack error there by the Blue Jays. Never mind, call reversed there. And point awarded for the Blue Jays. They're going to say the Jacks touched it at the net. It's 3-2. The Jacks by 1. Set number 1. Creighton with the serve. That one's out the back line, out of bounds, and it will be Jackrabbit point there. It's 4-2. The Jacks by 2 here in set number 1. Thanks for joining me here for this one. Turned out to be a beautiful day here in Brookings. Megan Rodenkamp, service now. Creighton with it, sending back a spike. That's outside the line, but touched up front by the Jackrabbits. And it will be a point for the Jays after that one goes out of bounds. Sydney Shetnan not suited up today. She's just in warm-ups. I think taking a rest day for the Jackrabbits. And here's a service by Creighton. Picked up that time Van Ingdam. Martin setting up Taylor Bile, and Bile can't find anything. Blocked up front by Creighton that time. Jackrabbit point as the block up for Creighton went out of bounds. 5-3 as the Jacks lead by 2 now here in the first set. Creighton headed the other way. Here comes a spike across. That one is inbounds, just barely. Point awarded to Creighton there. 5-4. Jacks by 1 in set number 1. Creighton with the serve. Again, apologize. Creighton not wearing numbered or named jerseys. just wearing warm-ups here. Picked up Van Igdam. Zonks trying to spike over, gets it there. Creighton pops it right back to Jackrabbit territory. Now Taylor Biles sending a spike across. That one heads out of bounds. And Creighton with the point there. Tied up 5 apiece here in set number 1 between these two teams. Creighton coming in visiting from Omaha, Nebraska. They're part of the Big East Conference. The Jackrabbits, of course, in the Summit League. Service error here by Creighton. That one goes out the back line. Point for the Jacks. It's 6-5 here, first set. So like I was saying, we will play 3 sets here either way. And here is Katie Van Igdam with the serve. Creighton picks it up, headed the other way. Tipping across now. Bile Martin to Zonks. Zonks across and down. A kill for Sylvie Zonks. Sylvie Sconce has just had a wonderful year for the Jackrabbits. Katie Van Igdam serving again. This one to the back middle. Creighton setting up the front line, spiking across, and that one's down in Jackrabbit territory. Point for Creighton there. Ball went just in front of the face of Caitlin Van Kirk for the Jacks. She's the transfer out of Boise State who will be joining us next season. Excited to see what she can do. Had a pretty good match against Minnesota earlier today. Van Igdam on the dig. Here's Martin. Sconce tries to spike it across. That's blocked up front. Diving Van Igdam. Sconce another one. Out into open space. Sylvie Sconce able to get the kill there. 8-6. Jacks by 2 against the Blue Jays, who just defeated Minnesota moments ago, 2-1. Creighton played a wonderful game against the Gophers here. Rachel Weber back to serve. That one's deep to the far side corner. This one tipped across by the Blue Jays. Martin there. Here comes Van Kirk spiking across. That's going to be a point for the Blue Jays, as I believe Van Kirk touched the net. 8-7 now. The Jackrabbits up by 1 in set number 1. Serving now is Creighton. This one across to Sconce. Sconce pops it up. Here's Martin. Martin to Van Kirk. Van Kirk on a spike across, and that one goes out of bounds. Point for Creighton ties us up at 8 points apiece in set number 1. Creighton on the service once again. This goes deep out the back line, and they're going to say inbounds. That one was close to the line. They rule it inbounds. Blue Jays get that point. It's 9-8. The Jackrabbits down by 1 now. Creighton serving once again. Here's Sconce. Martin gets it trapped up against the net. In trouble. The Jackrabbits scramble, able to get it across. Creighton they award a point to Creighton. Net violation there by the Jackrabbits. The referee up there made the wrong call initially. Changed it. It's 10-8. The Jackrabbits down by 2. Here is Van Kirk, who gets it into a block and out of bounds. Point for the Jacks. Error for Creighton. Riley Martin back behind the line, serving now for the Jacks. Martin back to serve. This one picked up by Creighton. Here comes a spike. That's Van Igdam. Van Igdam, Riley Martin. That's Ventling Brown laying one down on the other side. Creighton able to dig it up. Sends it back the way of Katie Van Igdam, and she can't dig it. It's 11-9 now as the Jackrabbits down by 2 here in set number 1. And it will be Creighton serving once again. Back middle, that's Van Igdam. Here's Martin. Here comes a spike across by Madison Burr. Somehow Creighton digs that one up. That's across Rachel Weber on the dig. Martin sets up Sconce. Sconce gets it blocked up front into the net and down on the Jackrabbit side. Point for the Blue Jays. It's 12-9. The Jackrabbits down by 3 now in set number 1. Service picked up by Van Igdem. Here's Martin setting up Madison Burr. Madison Burr gets into the net. And another point for the Blue Jays. An attack error there for the Jackrabbits. The Blue Jays starting to get on a run here late in the first set. That's going to force Jackrabbit coach Dan Georgalis to use one of his timeouts. We'll take it with them. Be right back here on Collegiate Sports after this.
This portion of KSDJ 90.7's broadcast is brought to you by locally owned Brookings PowerQuest. Located in the University Mall at 820 22nd Avenue South, you can find everything your ride needs. From essential auto parts to top-notch accessories and customer service, PowerQuest is a one-stop shop for Brookings. Their phone number is 692-6298. PowerQuest is a proud sponsor of SDSU Student Radio, KSDJ 90.7.
Welcome back in here to First Bank and Trust Arena for the Jackrabbit Volleyball Spring Tournament. Creighton and your Jackrabbits facing off here in First Bank and Trust Arena. So glad to have you alongside me here. An honor it is to broadcast Jackrabbit Volleyball here on Collegiate Sports. Creighton currently leading set number 1, 13-9. Creighton with the serve. Very quiet in First Bank and Trust Arena. Not for a lack of people here, but just no music like usual, no cheerleaders like usual. Creighton spiking across that one, headed out of bounds. Point for the Jackrabbits after the timeout. It's 13-10 now. The Jacks down by 3. Sylvie Scott's back behind the line to serve it. This one across to back middle Creighton, and his spike across here, picked up by Scotts. Martin sets up Ventling Brown, who tips it across. Creighton headed the other way, hits the upright, the out of bounds pole, and point awarded to the Jackrabbits. 13-11, the Jackrabbits able to score the last 2 points. Only down by 2 now. Scott still serving. This one picked up by Creighton. Set up for the spike, and it's down. Scott pops it up, and here it comes, sent by Katie Van Igdem. Here comes a spike by Creighton. That goes out of bounds. Touched up front by Madison Burr or Ventling Brown. So the Jackrabbits touch it before it goes out of bounds. And the Blue Jays lead it 14-11 here in set number 1. The Jays will still serve it. Service across, picked up by Scotts. Here's Martin to Van Igdem. Van Igdem across, tipping over. It's Creighton, picked up by Martin. Ventling Brown tries to lay it across. That's blocked. Madison Burr hits it up. It almost hits the scoreboard. That would have counted it out of play, but it doesn't. Here comes a heater on the outside. Rachel Weaver tries to dig it, but she can't make it happen. It's 15-11. Creighton awarded the last point. The Jackrabbits down by 4 in set number 1. Creighton serving. Again, I apologize. Creighton's wearing warm-ups, not numbered jerseys. I can't make out faces for them where I'm sitting either. Scotts with the dig. Here's Martin. Van Igdem spiking across. Creighton gets an arm on it. And back down. Creighton with the kill there. The Blue Jays playing very well here to start off the first set. 16-11. The Jackrabbits down by 5 now. Back behind the line serving. It's Creighton across, and here is Weber to Martin. Martin bumps it up for Van Igdam, and Igdam catches the top of the net. And there's going to be an error there for Van Igdam. Georgalis uses his second timeout of the set. It's 17-11. The Jackrabbits down by 6. We'll take it with them. Be right back here on Collegiate Sports after this.
This portion of KSDJ 90.7's broadcast is brought to you by D.O. Bike and Fitness. Located at 1738 6th Street in Brookings, South Dakota, D.O. is a place for all things bikes. Offering top brands such as Trek and Electra, this close-to-campus store has both bike and e-bike options. Remember, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy a bike, and that's pretty close. 692-2022 is the number to call for this full-service and sales store. D.O. is a proud sponsor of SDSU Student Radio KSDJ 90.7.
Welcome back into First Bank and Trust Arena. I'm Ben Anderson with Collegiate Sports. So glad to have you alongside us here for this one. The Jackrabbits down by 6 early in this one to Creighton. It's 17-11 in the first set, and Creighton has the serve. Creighton with the serve. Back across to Scotts. Here's Martin setting up Burr, and Madison Burr makes it happen on the near side. Madison Burr has just such an impressive spike. Just a freshman last year, now coming in as a sophomore for this Jackrabbit program, has really made an impact here. Roggenkamp with the serve for the Jacks. Tip over is Creighton. Martin diving for that one. Roggenkamp bumps it up. Van Igdam finds a blocker. And a point for Creighton. 18-12. The Jays by 6. And Creighton will serve. This one back across to Van Igdam. Here is Martin. Martin to Burr. Burr finds a block in front. That one goes out of bounds. Last touch by Creighton. Point for the Jackrabbits there. It's 18-13 in the first set. The Jacks down by 5. Riley Martin back to serve it. Martin's serve to the back row of Creighton. Here comes a spike across, picked up by Aaliyah Schlimgin. Martin setting up Scott. Scott sends a spike across. That's dug up by Creighton. Here is a dig by Martin. Schlimgin pops it up for Van Igdam on the outside. Van Igdam's spike is dug up by Creighton. They get set up for a spike. Here's Martin with the dig. Schlimgin all the way across. Here is a spike by Caitlin Van Kirk. The transfer does it. The Jacks with the point there. 18-14 now. And the Jacks down by 4. Riley Martin serve. A spike goes out of bounds, sent by Creighton. Point for the Jackrabbits as they start to come back here late in this first set. It's 18-15. The Jackrabbits down by 3. Here is Riley Martin. Martin picks that one up. Spiking across, picked up by Scotts. Here's Riley Martin to Van Kirk. Van Kirk with a spike. That one's dug up by Creighton. Here comes a spike from the Blue Jays. That's blocked up front by Katie Van Igdam. Van Igdam gets it done there. 18-16, the Jackrabbits down by 2 here in set number 1. Riley Martin back behind the line serving still. Dug up by Creighton. That one's awkward. And they can't get it over in 3. It's going to be a service ace for Riley Martin. Forces Creighton to take a timeout as the Jackrabbits have crawled back into this first set. It's 18-17. The Jackrabbits down by 1. We'll take a quick break. Be back in about 30 seconds here on Collegiate Sports.
Support comes from the South Dakota Agricultural Heritage Museum in Brookings, inspiring a passion for the diverse history, culture, and science of agriculture in South Dakota. To learn more about exhibits and events, you can visit agmuseum.com.
Welcome back into First Bank and Trust Arena. I'm Ben Anderson with Collegiate Sports. So glad to have you along for this one, the spring tournament here in Brookings, coming to a close. The final match of the day here for volleyball. The Blue Jays taking on the Jackrabbits. The Jays currently lead the first set by 1. It's 18-17. The Jackrabbits have been on a streak here. After the timeout, it's going to be Riley Martin serving still for the yellow and blue. Martin's serve picked up by the back row for Creighton. Spiking across to the back row, that's Slimgin on the dig. Slimgin sends it all the way back over to Creighton territory. Van Kirk bumping back towards center as that one got a little wild. Free ball here for Creighton. Setting up the outside, here comes a spike and no Jackrabbit can get there. Sylvie Scott's dives for that one. Creighton still serving, it's 19-17 now as the Blue Jays lead it by 2. Picked up by Rachel Weber. Martin setting up Van Kirk. That one over. And a spike sent by Creighton out of bounds, and a point for the Jackrabbits as this narrow set number 1 coming to an end. It's 19-18. The Jackrabbits only down by 1 here. Katie Van Igdam serving for the Jacks. That's a little far to her right, and that's out of bounds. Service error there. It's 20-18 now as the Jacks lead it. The Jays lead it by 2. And they serve. Creighton's across. That's picked up by Van Igdam. Martin running for the bump. Here is Sconce who sends a heater into the block. The blockers can't get it over to the Jackrabbit side. Creighton sending a spike now. That's dug up by Rachel Weber. Here's Riley Martin. Martin to Van Kirk. Van Kirk sends one in. A spike and an error there for Creighton as they ran into the net. A point for the Jackrabbits. It's 20-19. The Jacks only down by 1 now. Rachel Weber back behind the line serving for the Jacks. Weber's serve picked up by the back row. Creighton sending a spike across, and Riley Martin diving to keep it in play, and Weber gets it close to the net, but not quite, as the third hit by Weber as she was running back towards where the basketball net would typically be, just barely didn't make it into Creighton territory. Good effort there by the Jackrabbits, but nothing for it. It's 21-19. The Jacks down by 2. Creighton serving. This one's out of bounds. Service error there by the Blue Jays. 21-20. Jackrabbits only down by 1 here in the first set. They were down by 6 earlier. Riley Martin serving. This one picked up by the back row. Creighton sends a spike across into the block of Sylvie Sconce. And that one is a point for Creighton as it hit the ground in Jackrabbit territory off the block. 22-20. Jacks down by 2. Creighton serving once again. Creighton the only team with a timeout remaining in this set. Creighton sends it back to Van Igdam. Here's Martin setting up Burr. Burr sends one wild out of bounds, untouched by Creighton. Point for the Blue Jays. It's 23-20. The Jackrabbits down by 3 now here, and a narrow set number 1. Starting to get a little wider here as the Jackrabbit deficit starts to get a little greater. Service error again by Creighton. They've struggled through the first set. And as I was watching the Minnesota-Creighton game, Creighton also struggling to get clean serves across. 23-21. The Jackrabbits down by 2. It's going to be Sylvie Scott's back serving. Scott's serve is fair. Picked up by the back row. Here is Creighton sending one across the net. And the Jackrabbits can't dig it. Martin had an awkward hit off of it, and then Ventling Brown couldn't correct it. Flies out of bounds. And a point for the Jays. It's now set point in set number 1 for the Blue Jays. It's 24-21. Serve across, picked up by Scotts. Here's Martin. Ventling Brown sends one across. This dug up by Creighton. Spike comes again, touched by the block, and the Blue Jays are going to take set number 1, 25-21. The Jackrabbits put up a fight at the end there, but inevitably, Creighton walks away with set number 1. We'll take a break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes for set number 2 here in Brookings. Make sure you stick around for that one. I think this game should be pretty good. We'll see if the Jackrabbits can take a knock out of the Creighton Blue Jays. We'll be right back.
Most people out here think that taking care of one another is important. And most people would step up for a neighbor going through a tough time. Most people around here help out friends and family when they need it. But the funny thing is, most of us won't look for help when we need it. Talk to someone if you're struggling with mental health, because most people out here really care. Find more information at loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
So what's a great way to spread awareness that driving high is illegal everywhere? A catchy song, of course.
You can run, but you can't drive high. You can run, but you can't drive high.
Friendly reminder, don't drive high. If you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This portion of KSDJ 90.7's broadcast is brought to you by locally owned Brookings PowerQuest. Located in the University Mall at 820 22nd Avenue South, you can find everything your ride needs. From essential auto parts to top-notch accessories and customer service, PowerQuest is a one-stop shop for Brookings. Their phone number is 692-6298. PowerQuest is a proud sponsor of SDSU Student Radio, KSDJ 90.7.
Welcome back into First Bank and Trust Arena for set number 2 here of the Jackrabbit Spring Volleyball Tournament versus the Creighton Blue Jays. The Jays took set number 1, 25-22 over the Jackrabbits. And now the Jacks look to put one up against the Creighton Blue Jays. They played Creighton last week, March 29th, on Saturday. They were able to win one set against them, but the Blue Jays inevitably, able to get 2 sets up on the Jacks last week. So we'll see if the Jacks can do better here. Service by Creighton. That's picked up by Van Igdam. Martin with the set for Taylor Bile. Spiking across is Creighton. Van Igdam pops it up. Martin with the set for Van Kirk. Van Kirk sends it wide to the left and out of bounds. Jays take the first point in set number 2. 1-0 is the score. Creighton with the service. Van Igdem pops it up. Here's Martin, sets up Socks. Scots can't lay it down hard enough. That's easily dug up by Creighton. Van Kirk bumping over. Free ball here for the Blue Jays. Spike across, diving for that one, Van Igdem. And Sylvie Scots tipping across. There's a kill there for Sylvie Scots. Tied up at 1 apiece here in set number 2. Aaliyah Schlimgen serving. And that's going to be a service ace there for Aaliyah Schlimgen, as Creighton can't dig it up in the back row. It's 2-1 now. Jacks by 1 in set number 2. Schlimgen serving once again. That's to the back row middle. Here's Creighton spiking across. That hits Schlimgen in the left shoulder. Bounces off awkwardly, and there's no recovery there for the Jackrabbits. Tied up 2 apiece, set number 2. Creighton with the serve. Creighton's serve is up and picked up by Scots. Scots sets across. And that's going to be a point for Creighton. Believe they're going to get Riley Martin with a lift there. It's 3-2, the Jays by 1. Serving again, the Blue Jays. That's Van Igdem. Here's Martin setting up Van Kirk. Van Kirk with the tip across. Creighton digs it up. They send a spike out of bounds. Touched by the Jackrabbit blockers off the fingertips. And the Blue Jays with the point there. It's 4-2. The Jacks down by 2, set number 2. Creighton serving. That's out. Service error by Creighton again. It's 4-3 now. The Jacks down by 1. Riley Martin back behind the line to serve. Martin's serve. Picked up by the back row for Creighton. Creighton setting up the spike. That's blocked up front by Madison Burr and Annalie Ventling Brown. Able to get the point there. It's tied up 4 apiece in set number 2. Riley Martin serving once again for the yellow and blue. Martin serve to the back corner. That's popped up by Creighton. Bumping towards the net. Awkward spike there, but it's in Jackrabbit territory. Here is Sylvie Scots, who gets blocked. She's able to recover. She tries again. That's inbounds. A kill there for Sylvie Scots from the outside. Riley Martin back to serve once again. Martin on the serve. It's 5-4. The Jacks by 1 in set number 2. That one dug up by Creighton, although awkwardly sent across into the block and in Jackrabbit territory. Point for Creighton. It's 5-5. Creighton serve here in set number 2 as we're tied up at 5 apiece. This one picked up by Scots. Martin can't get it. Scots put it too close to the net. It's going to be 6-5. Creighton up by 1 if the scoreboard fixes itself. It's currently wrong. Madison Burr with a spike across, and there's a kill for Madison Burr. Again, Madison Burr with an expert level spike. During her season with the Jackrabbits, she was able to get 211 kills, averaged 1.87 kills per set. Service here by the Jackrabbits. Creighton all over it. Sends it back into the net. That's an error for the Jays. It's now 7-6. The Jackrabbits up by 1. Sylvie Scott's back serving. That's picked up by the back row, middle. Here comes a spike from the outside. Creighton sends it out of bounds, untouched by the blockers. And a point for the Jackrabbits. It's 8-6. The Jacks by 2 here in set number 2. Sylvie Scott's back serving once again. Creighton all over it. They send a spike back, and Riley Martin can't dig that one up. It's 8-7. The Jackrabbits by 1. Here in set number 2. Creighton on the serve. That's into the net, a service error by Creighton. It's 9-7. The Jackrabbits by 2 now, set number 2. It's been a little bit back and forth here through this set. Annalie Ventling-Brown will be back and serving for the Jackrabbits. Ventling-Brown tips to the top of the net. That's picked up by Creighton. Creighton sends a spike back across. Ventling-Brown tries to get under it, actually does, but sends it flying over towards the crowd. And a point for the Blue Jays. It's 9-8 as the Jacks up by 1 here in set number 2. Creighton with the serve. Creighton's serve is to the back row. That's Van Igdam. Here's Martin setting up. Taylor Bile able to get the kill there from the top ropes with the spike. Here is Riley Martin back serving for the Jackrabbits. Martin's serve is to the back row for Creighton. Creighton sets up the spike. Here comes one right past the blockers, and Aaliyah Schlimgen can't get it dug up on the fill. Excellent placement there by the Blue Jays. It's 10-9. The Jackrabbits by 1 here in set number 2. Creighton with the serve. Creighton's serve is to the back row. That's picked up by Van Igdam. Here's Martin. Martin across to Van Kirk. Van Kirk across. Creighton sends it right back, and Riley Martin gets one paw on it, but she can't pop it up high enough for Katie Van Igdam to get any purchase on the ball. Ties it up at 10 apiece after the Creighton point there. In set number 2, Creighton still serving. Behind the line, that's back towards Van Igdam. Here's Martin setting up Van Kirk. Van Kirk with the spike into the block. Sent out of bounds off the touch of Creighton. And a point there off the kill by Van Kirk. It's 11-10. The Jacks by 1. Megan Roggenkamp going to be serving now for the yellow and blue. Roggenkamp, that's to the back row, towards the net, set up the spike. Creighton sending one, touched by the block, and a point awarded for the Blue Jays as the Jackrabbit block sends it flying out of bounds. It's 11-all here in set number 2. Creighton will be serving set number 2. We're tied up at 11. Again, I apologize, Creighton not wearing numbered jerseys, just wearing warm-ups. Don't know the roster there. Sylvie Sconce sends a heater into the block. Unfortunately, couldn't penetrate anything there. Gets stopped up at the net and in Jackrabbit territory. Point for the Blue Jays. Sylvie Sconce has not been able to find a lot of space up by the net like she typically could. Another service error there by Creighton. We're tied up at 12 apiece as the service error there by Creighton. Aaliyah Schlimgen on the serve. And it's going to be a service ace there for Aaliyah Schlimgen, her second of the match. And the Jacks going to be leading by 1 here, 13-12. Schlimgen, back row for Creighton. Here comes a spike across. That's sent out of bounds, untouched by the Jackrabbit blockers. Good eyes up front there by Caitlin Van Kirk, not to touch that one as it was sent to her left, which was out of bounds. It's 14-12. The Jacks by 2. Aaliyah Schlimgen serving once again. That's to the back row for Creighton. Spiking across into the block. Touched by the blockers and sent out of bounds. Creighton with the point there. 14-13 is the score. The Jackrabbits by 1 here in set number 2. Creighton won the first set. Creighton with the serve here. The Jays down by 1. That one's a heater out the back line. Service error again for the Jays. Riley Martin will be back serving for the Jackrabbits. It's currently 15-13. The Jacks by 2. Riley Martin's serve, that's picked up by the back line. Spiking across, popped up by Riley Martin on the dig. Schlimgen able to bump it up for Sconce. Sconce sends a heater. Somehow that's returned by Creighton. She just put her arms up. Madison Burr sends one across, and that's going to be the kill for the Jackrabbits. Two heaters there back-to-back by the Jacks, Madison Burr and Sylvie Sconce. Burr able to get it done. Riley Martin on the serve. It's 16-13. Jacks by 3, set number 2. Block up front there by Sconce, popped up by Ventling Brown. Sconce with a spike into the blockers, and a point for the Jackrabbits as the block from Creighton sends it out of bounds. 17-13, the Jacks by 4. Creighton's going to use a timeout. We'll take it with them. Be right back here on Collegiate Sports in about 30 seconds.
Support comes from the South Dakota Agricultural Heritage Museum in Brookings, inspiring a passion for the diverse history, culture, and science of agriculture in South Dakota. To learn more about exhibits and events, you can visit agmuseum.com.
Welcome back into First Bank and Trust Arena. I'm Ben Anderson with Collegiate Sports. So glad to have you alongside me for this one. It's set number 2 here in Brookings as the Jackrabbits are currently leading set number 2, 17-13. The Jacks by 4, and they lost set number 1, 25-22. So Creighton up by 1 set here in the spring game. Creighton calls the timeout. Back now, the Jackrabbits have the serve and lead it by 4. Riley Martin back behind the line serving for the Jackrabbits. This one across the net, picked up by Creighton in the front row. Here comes a spike across. There's Sconce who bumps it up. Van Igdem against the net, and the Jacks can't get it over in 3. It's 17-14. The Jackrabbits by 3 now. Set number 2. Back row, Creighton serving it. Here is Sconce on the dig. Martin to Van Igdem. Van Igdem tipping across. Dug up by Creighton. Here comes another spike. Van Igdem with the dig once again. Martin setting up Burr on the outside. Burr tipping towards center. That's in Creighton territory. Here's a spike across, diving for it. That's Rachel Weber. Martin setting up Ventling Brown. That's blocked up front. Here's Sconce with a spike across. That's dug up by Creighton once again. Creighton sends a spike deep out the back line, and a point for the Jackrabbits, untouched there before going out of bounds. Jacks up by 4 now in set number 2. Looking to take a set here against the Big East rival. Sylvie Sconce back serving for the Jacks. That's to the back row, picked up by Creighton. Here comes a tip across, diving for that one. Rachel Weber can't, that's Aaliyah Schlimgen can't quite get under that one. It's 18-15. The Jacks by 3 as the Blue Jays win that last point. Now serving, Creighton with it. That's back across to the back row. There's going to be a service ace there for Creighton as Sylvie Sconce can't quite dive for that one. And that's going to force head coach Dan Georgalis to take the timeout for the Jackrabbits. We'll take it with them. Be back here in about 30 seconds on Collegiate Sports.
This portion of KSDJ 90.7's broadcast is brought to you by locally owned Brookings PowerQuest. Located in the University Mall at 820 22nd Avenue South, you can find everything your ride needs. From essential auto parts to top-notch accessories and customer service, PowerQuest is a one-stop shop for Brookings. Their phone number is 692-6298. PowerQuest is a proud sponsor of SDSU Student Radio, KSDJ 90.7.
Welcome back into First Bank & Trust Arena. I'm Ben Anderson with Collegiate Sports. So glad to have you alongside me here for this one, the spring tournament here in Brookings, Minnesota, Creighton, and of course your Jackrabbits. Creighton and the Jacks facing off in the final game of the day. Creighton with the service. Riley Martin bumps it up. Here is Van Igdam across. That's dug up by Creighton. Creighton with the setup for the tip across. Weber diving for that one. Here is a tip over by Sconce, and there's an error by Creighton as Sconce is going to get the point for the Jackrabbits. It's 19-16. The Jacks by 3 here in set number 2. The Jacks dropped set number 1, 25-22 against Creighton. We'll play to 3 sets here, no matter what. Ventling Brown with the serve for the Jacks. That's picked up by the back row for Creighton. Here's a spike across in Jack territory. It's Sconce. Here's Madison Burr with the tip across. Sconce over to Martin on the direct set over Riley. Martin able to get the kill there. It's 20-16. The Jackrabbits lead it by 4. Here in set number 2, Annalie Ventling Brown serving once again for the Jacks. That one's out the back line. Service error there by the Jackrabbits. It's 20-17. The Jacks lead by 3 in set number 2. Spike across by Creighton. That's the back row. Sconce pops it up. Here's Martin on the setup for Burr. Burr, spike across. Creighton going to send a tip back to the Jackrabbits. Rachel Weber here to Martin. Here's Madison Burr who finds the blockers. And a net violation there by Creighton is going to give the Jackrabbits the point. It's 21-17. The Jackrabbits lead set number 2 by 4. Riley Martin back behind the line serving. Martin's serve tips the top of the net but makes it over to the back row. Here's Creighton sending one back. Schlimgen pops it up here. Van Igdam spike across. Creighton sending it right back. Schlimgen able to dig it. Martin sets up Sconce and she sends a heater. That's somehow dug up by the Blue Jays. Headed the other way. Spike down in front of Schlimgen and the Jacks can't dig it. Point for the Jays. It's 21-18. The Jacks up by 3 here in set number 2. Creighton on the service. That's picked up by Van Igdam. Here's Martin. That to Taylor Bile. That's outside the box. Out of bounds there, a little bit to the left. Taylor Bile Can't make it happen. Point for the Blue Jays. It's 21-19 as it gets a little closer here at the end of the second set. The Jacks up by 2 currently. Creighton on the serve. This one hits the net. That's going to be a service error there for Creighton. 22-19, the Jacks by 3. Headed back to serve it for the yellow and blue. It's going to be number 1, Megan Roggenkamp. Roggenkamp from the back line. Serve across, that's picked up by the back row for Creighton. Set forward and spike across, that's popped up by Sylvie Scotts. Here comes a spike over by Van Kirk. And that's going to be a kill there. Caitlin Van Kirk. 23-19, the Jackrabbits leading by 4. Roggenkamp still back serving. The sophomore from Rockford, Minnesota. That one popped up by Creighton. Here comes a spike across. That one's out of bounds. Untouched by the Jackrabbits. Point there. It's going to be set point in set number 2 for the Jacks. 24-19. Roggenkamp back serving. Roggenkamp to the back row. That's popped up by Creighton. Here's a set forward and a spike across up for the blockers. That's Taylor Bile making it happen on the front lines. Excellent block up front there by Taylor Bile. Ends the set for the Jackrabbits. Ties us up at 1 set apiece. Headed into set number 3. The final set here in Brookings. We'll be back in about 2 minutes for the final set on Collegiate Sports. Be right back after this.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Babes, what are you doing?
What? I'm just mowing the lawn.
No, it's blazing hot and dry out here. Don't you remember? Smokey Bear says,
avoid using power equipment when it's windy or dry.
Where'd you learn this?
oh, it's on
SmokeyBear.com with many other wildfire prevention tips.
Right. Thanks, Honey Bear.
Because remember, only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Support comes from the South Dakota Agricultural Heritage Museum in Brookings, inspiring a passion for the diverse history, culture, and science of agriculture in South Dakota. To learn more about exhibits and events, you can visit agmuseum.com.
Welcome back into First Bank and Trust Arena. I'm Ben Anderson with Collegiate Sports. So glad to have you alongside us for set number 3 here, the third and final set of the day for the Jackrabbits, defeating Minnesota earlier today 2-1. And then Creighton played Minnesota, where Creighton won that one 2-1 over the Gophers. And now we play here, the Jackrabbits versus the Blue Jays, and it's tied up 1 set apiece. The third and final set coming in about 10 seconds here. So glad to have it for you. The Jackrabbits just won the second set, 25-19 over Creighton. Creighton able to get the first set up on the Jackrabbits, 25-22. And now it is time for set number 3. Unfortunately, Creighton not wearing numbered jerseys. Can't get their names for you during the play-by-play. But I've got the Jacks. Megan Roggenkamp is going to be back to serve it for SDSU to start off set number 3. Here is Creighton back with the spike down, and they're going to score it first. The Blue Jays on the board right away. It's 1-0 with a heater of the spike sent there by the Blue Jays. Back behind the line, serving now. It's Creighton. Popped up here, Rachel Weber. Here's Roggenkamp. Roggenkamp to Scott. Scott sends it inside. A kill there for Sylvie Scotts. It's one apiece here in set number 3. The Jackrabbits back serving now. It's Rachel Weber. That's to the back line of Creighton. Here's a tip across into the middle open space. No Jacks in the area. The Jays get the point there. 2-1. Creighton ahead and back to serve now. Here's the serve across that's picked up by Roggenkamp. Riley Martin sets up Ventling Brown, and Ventling Brown can't quite complete the tip across. Ran into the net there. The Blue Jays get the point off the error. It's 3-1. Blue Jays back to serve, lead it by 2 in set number 3. Here is Scotts to Martin, and a spike sent across there by Finley Westover. Block up front by Ventling Brown. Creighton still on the offensive. Tried to spike it across. Diving there for the dig. It's Rachel Weber. The Jacks send it back into Creighton territory. Here's a spike to the back row. Roggenkamp, and that one's not going to be playable. Ran into the official stand there. The Jays get the point. 4-1. The Jacks down by 3. Good volley there by both teams. Kept alive by Rachel Weber on an excellent dig. Here is Sylvie Scotts. Martin sets up Westover. That's down on the other side. Creighton pops it up. Here comes a tip across. Ventling Brown pops it up. Here's Scotts into Creighton territory. And there's a tip back into Jack territory. There for the kill. The Blue Jays get the point. It's 5-1. The Jacks down by 4. The Blue Jays on a 4-0 run. The Jays still serve. That's going to be a service ace, as Roggenkamp couldn't quite get under that one. 6-1 here, as the Jacks now down by 5, forces Coach Georgalis to use one of his 2 timeouts. We'll take it with him. Be right back here in about 30 seconds on Collegiate Sports.
This portion of KSDJ 90.7's broadcast is brought to you by D.O. Bike and Fitness. Located at 1738 6th Street in Brookings, South Dakota, D.O. is a place for all things bikes. Offering top brands such as Trap and Electra, this close-to-campus store has both bike and e-bike options. Remember, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy a bike, and that's pretty close. 692-2022 is the number to call for this full-service and sales store. D.O. is a proud sponsor of SDSU Student Radio KSDJ 90.7.
It's set number 3 here in the spring tournament. The Jackrabbits facing off against Creighton from Omaha, Nebraska. The Jacks off to a slow start. It's 6-1. The Jays lead it by 5. The Blue Jays on a 5-0 run over the Jackrabbits, and they serve currently. Blue Jays with the serve. That's picked up by Scotts. Here's Martin setting up Scotts for the spike into the blocks. And Creighton can't return it to the Jackrabbit side. There's a kill for Sylvie Scotts. It's going to be 6-2 as the Jackrabbits able to get another point on the board. Riley Martin back to serve it for the yellow and blue. Martin serve to the back row. That's going to be a service ace for Riley Martin. It's 6-3. The Jackrabbits finding a little bit more success here in set number 3. Riley Martin back across. That's picked up by the back row. Here's a setup for Creighton. That's popped to Roggenkamp. Here's Martin setting up Ventling Brown, who lays down the hammer. And Ali Ventling Brown able to get the kill there for the Jackrabbits. It's 6-4. The Jacks down by 2 here in the third and final set of the day. Riley Martin back serving. Picked up by the back row of Creighton. Here comes a spike across into the blockers and out of bounds. Point for the Blue Jays there. It's 7-4. The Jacks going to be down by 3 here in the third set. Creighton back serving. Here comes the spike across, picked up by Roggenkamp. Here's Martin putting it up for Scots, and Scots sends it back to the Creighton side. They dig it up, send it back, and it's going to be out of bounds. Point for the Jackrabbits. It's going to be 7-5, and the Jacks down by 2 now. Back serving for the yellow and blue. It's going to be Sylvie Scots. Scots back row for Creighton. This one popped up, spiking across, and that's Riley Martin who couldn't dig it up. Diving for that one. It came fast. It's 8-5. The Jacks down by 3 here in set number 3. Creighton maintaining their lead. And back serving now is the Blue Jays. Service by the Blue Jays. That's popped back to Scots. Martin pops it up, and that's going to be a free ball here for the Blue Jays. And they can't make it happen. They tried for the tip. It was a little too low, ran right into the net. Point for the Jackrabbits. Attack error there by the Blue Jays. It's 8-6. The Jacks down by 2. Annalie Ventling Brown back serving. Ventling Brown. The back line there to the back row of Creighton. Here comes a spike, and it's Madison Burr with a block up front for the Jackrabbits. Denies Creighton at the net. It's 8-7. The Jacks only down by 1 now in the third and final set. Ventling Brown still serving. That's to the back row, popped up by Creighton. Here's the set. And a spike across. That's off the arms of Sylvie Scots and out the back line. The Jays get the point there. It's going to be 9-7. The Jacks down by 2. Creighton will have the serve. Across the middle of the net, picked up by Rachel Weber. Here's a tip across. Madison Burr causes a collision on the Creighton side. They're able to return the volleyball, and that one touched by Riley Martin and heads out of bounds. 2 players on the Creighton side were collided there during that play. It's 10-7. The Jacks down by 3. Weber pops it up. Martin to Burr, and Burr sends a heater towards the Creighton sideline. Out of bounds. 11-7. The Jays widen their lead to 4. Creighton with the service. That's deep out the back line. A service error there by Creighton. Another one for the day. They've had many a problem with the service today, whether that be versus the Jackrabbits or versus Minnesota earlier. Riley Martin will be back serving for the Jacks. Martin's serve picked up by the back row for Creighton. Set forward and a spike off the block of Taylor Bile and out of bounds. Jays with the point. It's 12-8 now. The Jackrabbits going to be down by 4. It's set number 3. Creighton still serving. That's across the net, really deep. Another service error there for Creighton. 12-9, the Jacks down by 3, get another chance with the serve. Megan Roggenkamp will be serving. Last time she was up at the line, the Jackrabbits went on a run. We'll see if they can do it again. And that one's out the back line. And a service error there for Roggenkamp. Probably shouldn't have jinxed that one. 13-9. The Jays lead the Jacks by 4. Creighton with the serve. That one is close to the back line, played by Roggenkamp. Weber sends it back to the middle. Scott sends a spike across. Creighton tipping. Scott pops it up. Martin setting it up for, that's Finley Westover. Here is a diving save by Roggenkamp, and Scott catches a piece of the net while she tries to spike it across. 14-9. The Jacks down by 5 now, need to get something going. The Rabbits still have 1 timeout remaining for the set. That's out the back line, another service ace for Creighton. Excuse me, not a service ace, a service error. That's 3 service errors in a row for Creighton now. 14-10 the score. The Jacks down by 4. Here's Weber on the serve. Creighton with it, sending a spike. That's out the back line, out of bounds, untouched by the Jacks. Oh, they're going to say the Jacks did touch it up at the net. So the Jays awarded that point. It's 15-10. Blue Jays by 5 here in this third set. Weber dives for the dig. Here's Scotts, who catches a big piece of the net, and the ball not going to head into Creighton territory. It's going to be 16-10. The Jackrabbits down by 6, and wisely, head coach Dan Georgalis for the Jacks uses his last timeout. We'll take it with him, be back here in about 30 seconds on Collegiate Sports.
This portion of KSDJ 90.7's broadcast is brought to you by D.O. Bike and Fitness. Located at 1738 6th Street in Brookings, South Dakota, D.O. is a place for all things bikes. Offering top brands such as Trap and Electra, this close-to-campus store has both bike and e-bike options. Remember, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy a bike, and that's pretty close. 692-2022 is the number to call for this full-service and sales store. D.O. is a proud sponsor of SDSU Student Radio KSDJ 90.7.
Welcome back into First Bank and Trust Arena. I'm Ben Anderson with Collegiate Sports. The Jackrabbits facing off against Creighton here for the spring volleyball tournament. Creighton currently leads the third set, 16-10. We're tied up at 1 set apiece. Martin sets up Westover on the far side. Westover the spike and sets it down in Creighton territory again. Got close to the net. Westover gets the block, and she gets it done that time. Point for the Jacks. It's 16-11 after the kill by Finley Westover, the junior out of Illinois. Riley Martin on the serve, gets it across, and here comes a spike by the Jays in open space. The Jacks can't dig it. It's 17-11. The Jays by 6. Set number 3. Blue Jays back serving. This one is out of bounds. Good eyes there by Sylvie Scouts not to touch that one. Gonna make the score 17-12. Another service error there by the Blue Jays. Jacks down by 5. Sylvie Scotts back serving. Creighton sends it back in the form of a spike. Aaliyah Schlimgen can't quite get under that one. And the Jays with the point. It's 18-12. Creighton up by 6 over the Jackrabbits. And the Jays to serve. That one barely clears the top of the net. It's Scotts who gets under it. And Van Igdam able to tip it above the block and get the kill there for the yellow and blue. It's 18-13. The Jacks down by 5. Annalie Ventling-Brown back to serve. Ventling-Brown to the back row for Creighton. Here's the set and the spike across. That hits Taylor Bile in the face off of the awkward hit there by Madison Burr, who attempted to block that one. Everybody's okay. It's now 19-13. The Jays awarded the point. It's going to be the Jackrabbits down by 6 here in set number 3. Service by the Jays. Martin sets up Burr, who lays down the hammer, and it's ruled out of bounds by the flag. That one was close. Again, we do not have officials in this one, just volunteer flags and a volunteer official. Another service error here by the Jays. 20-14. The Jacks down by 6 in set number 3. Riley Martin to serve it after the service error by the Jays. Here is a serve across. The Blue Jays to spike it. That's blocked up front by Van Igdam. And Katie Van Igdam with the block gets the point. (20-15). The Jacks down by 5 here in set number 3. Riley Martin back serving. Martin to the back row. Barely dug up by Creighton. Here comes the spike across. It's picked up by Scotts to Martin. Here's Van Igdam on another tip across. Creighton scrambling for this one. Sending a spike that's blocked up front. Taylor Bile. Creighton somehow gets it over in 3 hits. Riley Martin direct set over and the kill for the Jackrabbits. (20-16). The Jacks trying to crawl back in this one. Down by 4. And it's Riley Martin back serving. The woman who just got the kill on the direct set on hit number 2. That's to the back row for Creighton. Setting up the spike. That's going to be towards Sylvie Scotts, who couldn't quite dig that one up. 21-16 the score. The Jackrabbits down by 5. Creighton to serve. Creighton getting things situated as far as players. Service there to Scotts, to Martin. Here's Van Igdam who meets the block. Weber to Martin the other way. It's Westover, and Westover's spike is blocked as well, and it ended up hitting Riley Martin in the shoulder. Point there for the Jays. It's 22-16. The Jacks down by 6 now against Creighton. That to the back row, it's Scotts. Martin. Taylor Biles' spike is blocked. Weber on the dig. Here's Scotts inside the line. And going to be awarded the point to the Jackrabbits. The official not quite knowing what's happening there. A couple different hand signals from the official on the net. But the Jackrabbits get the point. It's 22-17. The Jacks down by 5. Here comes a spike. That's popped up Aaliyah Schlimgen. They got to run for it, and Roggenkamp barely can't get there off the dive. That one towards where the student section typically is. It's folded up on that side of First Bank and Trust. 23-17, the Jacks by 6. Excuse me, the Jacks are down by 6. And Creighton back. That's Roggenkamp. Here's Martin. And Scott's shot is blocked up front again by Creighton. The front lines of Creighton doing work late in this third set against the Jackrabbits. Creighton back to serve. It is going to be match point here for the Jays. This one's back to Roggenkamp. Here's Martin tipping it up for Bile. Bile tip across. Creighton's going to send back a spike. That's off the blockers and out of bounds. The Jays going to win that one. And the Blue Jays able to win 2 sets. The Jackrabbits fall here to Creighton 2-1 in the spring tournament. So the Jacks not able to get it done here. And the final game of the day versus Creighton. The Jays going to take this one by 2 sets, 2-1. Earlier today, the Jackrabbits able to defeat the U of M 2-1 in a very good game earlier this morning. And in between those 2 games, Minnesota and Creighton faced off for what was also a very good game here in First Bank and Trust Arena. Just a very quality product here the Jackrabbit volleyball team produces. And if you haven't ever come down to First Bank and Trust to watch the Jacks volleyball team perform, you really oughta. It's a quality game here that the Jackrabbits bring. And I feel like it's not as much appreciated by a lot of the Jackrabbit faithful. But it definitely is one of the top sports that the Jackrabbits have right now. And we're getting ready for next season here with these scrimmage games. Next week, April 16th, the Wednesday at 7 p.m., Southwest Minnesota State University is going to be headed to Brookings, and we're going to be playing another scrimmage match here in First Bank and Trust Arena, the Jackrabbits versus the Mustangs at SMSU. We'll have that one for you on Collegian Sports. And then on May 3rd, Saturday at 2 p.m., the Jacks are headed to Ord, Nebraska to take on the Nebraska Huskers, and they will play that one out at Ord High School for that one. Just seeing here, I think we're going to play a 4th set here if Creighton has elected to do so. It's all determinant on what the coaches want. So typically play 3. They did for Minnesota. They did for the Creighton-Minnesota game. But if Creighton wants to play a 4th set and the Jackrabbits want to play a 4th set, then we will do that. And it looks like that's what we will do. Service there by the Blue Jays is going to be an ace there against the Jackrabbits as we're going to start up set number 4. Wasn't expecting it, but we're going to play 4 sets here at least in First Bank and Trust. Tied up at 1 apiece as the Jackrabbits get that point and tie up set number 4, 1-1. Creighton has 2 sets to the Jackrabbits 1. And the Blue Jays send a spike across. That's into the block by Van Igdam and out of bounds. Point for the Blue Jays. Spike across again. It's the Jays, set up by Riley Martin, and Van Igdem can't clear the net that time. Another service here by the Blue Jays. That's picked up by Weber. Here's Riley Martin. Martin to Madison Burr. Madison Burr meets the block, and that one out of bounds by the blocker. Point for the Jacks. It's going to be 3-2. The Jackrabbits down by 1 here in the 4th set. The surprise 4th set. A lot of the fans cleared out as well. Now returning here for the 4th. Roggenkamp serving for the Jacks. Creighton spike across and out of bounds. The Jackrabbits get the point, tie us up at 3 apiece in set number 4. Roggenkamp going to be serving again for the Jackrabbits. Here across, popped up by Sylvie Scotts. Martin to Van Igdem, who tries to get a tip across. That's blocked up front by Creighton. 4-3, the Jacks going to be down by 1 now. Creighton across here to Van Igdem. Here's Riley Martin. That's Madison Burr. Madison Burr meets the block of Creighton. And it's down in Jackrabbit territory. It's 5-3. The Jacks down by 2 now, set number 4. Creighton back behind the line. Serving here to Sylvie Scotts. Taylor Bile there with a spike in Creighton territory for the kill. Nice shot there by Taylor Bile, the middle blocker from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Riley Martin back behind the line to serve. Popped up by Creighton. Here's the set to center net. Blocked up front by Bile. That's in Creighton's possession again. Here comes a spike across. Schlimgen can't accurately dig that one up. 6-4. As the Jacks down by 2 here in set number 4. Here, serving again, Creighton. Riley Martin to Van Igdem. Van Igdem tipping across for the kill in empty space. 6-5, the Jackrabbits up by 1 now. Down by 1. As Creighton leads it. Katie Van Igdem back behind the line, serving. That's the back row of Creighton. That's back across. Here comes a spike off the arms of the blockers for the Jacks and out of bounds. Point for the Blue Jays. 7-5, the Jays by 2. Serving again is the Blue Jays. Here comes the service. That one is a low flyer and a service ace for the Jays. That one had some spin on it. Hard to dig up. It's now 8-5. The Jacks down by 3. This one tips the top of the net and goes over. Riley Martin dives for it. Can't quite get there. Another point for the Jays and another service ace back to back. It's 9-5. The Jacks down by 4 now in set number 4. Here's the serve across. That one out of bounds. Service error that time, and the Jackrabbits going to get a chance to serve it. It's 9-6. The Jacks are down by 3. Aaliyah Schlimgen back behind the line to serve it for the yellow and blue. Here's the service to the back row. That's tipped across by Creighton. And goes out of bounds. Point for the Jacks. It's 9-7. The Jacks down by 2 now. Set number 4. Schlimgit, service across. Here is Creighton's spike back. Riley Martin on the dig. Schlimgit over to Scotts. Scotts gets stopped by the block up front. Sylvie Scotts has really struggled today to get through the block of both Creighton and Minnesota. Typically an all-star player for the Jacks. 10-7. The Jackrabbits are down by 3. I would assume we're playing to 5 sets here, as Ventling Brown tips it across for the kill for the Jacks. It's now 10-8. The Jacks down by 2. Assume we're playing to 5 sets, so the Jacks must win set number 4 to force the set number 5, as Creighton has taken the lead of 2-1. Riley Martin back behind the line serving for SDSU. This one takes a knuckle off of the dig, and a service ace there for Riley Martin. Riley Martin out of Eaton, Colorado, the junior, 5'8". She currently holds the single season service ace record for the Jackrabbits at 37. Creighton tips it out of bounds. Point for the Jacks. Ties up set number 4 at 10 apiece. Riley Martin back to serve it once again. Martin's serve tips the top of the net and down. It's another service ace for Riley Martin. Hit the top of the net and takes a lucky spin over to the Creighton side. Martin serving once again, got the Jackrabbits the lead of 1. It's 11-10. This one played by Creighton. A spike sent back into Jackrabbit territory inbounds. Ties us up at 11 apiece. And Creighton will take the serve. Here comes a serve by the Blue Jays. That's picked up in the back row. Katie Van Igdam heads towards the Jackrabbit bench, and that's a service ace there for Creighton. It's going to be 12-11. The Jacks down by 1. Creighton stays with the serve. Sylvie Scotts to Martins. Back to Scotts. Creighton pops it up. Looking for the spike there. That's to the back row, Van Igdam. Here's Martin bumping it up. For Scotts, finding the spike, that's just out of bounds. 13-11. The Jays up by 2 off of the attack error by Scotts. Jays with the service. Here is Weber to Martin. Scotts able to get that one. The hammer on the outside. Sylvie Scotts. And it will be Scotts back to serve. This one, service to the back row for Creighton. Spiking down, it's Riley Martin on the dig. Schlimgin give to Burr. Burr across. This one popped up by Creighton, somehow recovered. Scotts pops it up. Martin keeps it alive, but it's too far out of play for any more Jackrabbits to get there. 14-12. The Jacks down by 2 now in set number 4. Creighton leads it 2-1. Blue Jays with the serve. Weber with the bump. Martin to Scotts. Scotts sends it into the back row for Creighton. Spiking back the other way. It goes out of bounds. They're going to say the Jackrabbits touched it at the net. And a point for the Jays. It's 15-12. The Jacks down by 3 now in set number 4. Creighton tips the top of the net. There's Scott's. And gets it just over the net. A point for the Jackrabbits. 15-13. Jacks down by 2. Megan Roggenkamp back serving for SDSU. That's short into the net and no good. The Jays lead it by 3 now, 16-13. And Creighton with the serve. Creighton's serve is to the back row. That's Katie Van Ingdam. Here's Martin. Back to Katie Van Ingdam. She meets the net. And an attacking error there. 17-13. The Jacks down by 4 now in set number 4. As Creighton starts to walk away with this one. Creighton to the back row, that's Van Ingdam. Here's Martin. Martin the other way. Madison Burr with the laser on the outside. Nice spike there by Madison Burr, the sophomore. And the Jacks get that point, 17-14. Anything could happen here. The Jacks down by 3. Riley Martin back serving. Martin serve picked up in the back row for Creighton. Attempted tip across and a double touch there by the Blue Jays. 17-15. The Jacks down by 2. Need to win the 4th set to stay in this one. Martin across. That's to the back row. Creighton pops it up. They're going to spike it down for Schlimgen, and she sends it flying backwards off the attempted dig. It's 18-15. The Jays by 3. And the Blue Jays will have the serve. That's to Scott's. That's to Martin. Here is Westover spiking it down, and the kill there by Finley Westover. (18-16). Jacks only down by 2 now in set number 4. Katie Van Ingdam back serving for the yellow and blue. Creighton pops it up, bumping, and now a spike across. Schlimgen dives for the dig. Here's Bile, who can't quite tip it across the block. Westover goes for the tip. Creighton's all over it. Here comes the spike across, the triple block up front there by Bile, Westover, and Sylvie Scotts gets it done. The kill there for the Jacks, 18-17. The Jacks only down by 1 here in set number 4. Katie Van Ingdam back serving once again. The Jacks gonna clean the floor as Schlimgen had to take a dive there, found a wet spot. And Van Ingdam will still be serving. Popped up by Creighton, that hit the scoreboard. They're gonna rule it in play here, and that's tipped across. Riley Martin to Van Ingdam. Van Ingdam can't quite get under it. (19-17). The Jacks down by 2. Creighton with the serve. Service across here to the back row. That's Weber. Here's Martin. Bile spikes across. Bile gets up and spikes it back down as that one got too close to the net for Creighton. Here's a block up front by Bile and Westover. Creighton still with possession, sending another spike. That's to the back row. Martin spikes it up and Westover across. Westover with the kill there as she finds open space in the back row. (19-18). The Jays up by 1 in set number 4. The Jackrabbits with the serve. It's Aaliyah Schlimgen. That tips the net in down, and it's going to be a service ace there for Aaliyah Schlimgen. ties us up at all 19 here in set number 4. A must win for the Jackrabbits if we're playing to 5. Schlim getting there. Service is fair. Spike down into the block, ends up in front of Sylvie Scotts, who gets hit with the volleyball. The Jays get the point there. It's 20-19. And the Blue Jays to serve. Headed back to Sylvie Scotts. This one blocked up front by Creighton, and they get the kill there. 21-19, the Jacks down by 2. Gonna force a timeout here by the Jackrabbits. We'll take it with them. Be right back here in about 30 seconds on Collegiate Sports.
This portion of KSDJ 90.7's broadcast is brought to you by locally owned Brookings PowerQuest. Located in the University Mall at 820 22nd Avenue South, you can find everything your ride needs. From essential auto parts to top-notch accessories and customer service, PowerQuest is a one-stop shop for Brookings. Their phone number is 692-6298. PowerQuest is a proud sponsor of SDSU Student Radio, KSDJ 90.7.
Welcome back to set number 4 here in First Bank and Trust Arena, the spring tournament game as Creighton faces off against your South Dakota State University Jackrabbits. Creighton leads set number 4, 21-19. This is a must-win for the Jackrabbits if we're playing to 5 sets. Martin to Westover. Westover can't get it done. The Jackrabbits somehow recover that one. Scott's able to bump it across. This one to the back row, it's Van Igdam. Martin direct set over. Into the net and down. That's Riley Martin with the kill. 21-20. The Jacks down by 1 here in set number 4. Riley Martin able to get the kill off the set on hit number 2 for the Jacks, and she will be the one to serve it now. Riley Martin's serve to the middle back row. Here comes the spike across by Creighton. Martin dives for that one, keeping alive, and Burr with the spike across. Martin again able to get the dig. Schlimgen over to Scotts, and Scotts sends a heater. That one, a miscommunication by Creighton. Players out of position, and the kill there off the error by Sylvie Scotts. 21 all as the Jackrabbits get that point. Riley Martin still serving. It's tied up in set number 4. Martin serve to the back row here. Creighton pops it up for the spike. That meets the arms of Madison Burr, and Burr forces it out of bounds, so point for the Jays. Going to be 22-21. The Jackrabbits down by 1 in this important 4th set. Creighton meets the net for a service error. Ties us up at 22 apiece once again. Sylvie Scotts is going to be back behind the line serving for the Jackrabbits. Scotts with the serve. That's to the back row for Creighton. Creighton's got to recenter this one, get control of it. That's blocked up front by Madison Burr, but that one goes out of bounds. The Jays get the point, 23-22. Jays up by 1. And they have the service. That's to the back row, that's Weber. Here's Martin to Sylvie Scotts, and Scotts can't tip it over, meets the top of the net, and it falls on the Jackrabbits side. The Jays now with match point. It's 24-22, and Dan Georgalis uses the timeout. The Jackrabbits struggling against the Blue Jays through this one. Haven't been able to figure out how to penetrate the block up front by Creighton. And Sylvie Scott's having a little bit of a slow day here in the spring tournament. Had some trouble against Minnesota earlier today as well. It's 24-22. The Jacks still in this one, set number 4. Creighton won the first set and the third set. The Jackrabbits took set number 2. And Dan Georgalis uses his final timeout of the game. And the Blue Jays here with, I believe, match point. They're going to have the serve. Through this one. We'll see if we play a 5th set regardless, or if this will be the end if Creighton makes set number 4 theirs. Service across the back row, that's Zonks. Here popped up by Ventling Brown. Rachel Weber has to give Creighton the free ball. Here comes the spike. That one dug up by Weber. Here's Martin bumping it up for Van Igdam, who sets it across. Creighton's all over it. They're going to do a set across as well. Here's Martin to Burr. Burr sends a heater across. Creighton able to dig it up. Here comes a spike by Creighton. That's blocked up front by Madison Burr. Creighton again going for it, and Madison Burr blocks it again. Unbelievable play there by Madison Burr, the 6'1 sophomore out of Goodhue, Minnesota. It's 24-23, and it's Megan Roggenkamp back serving for the Jacks. That's in Creighton territory. Here comes the spike off the blocker's fingertips, popped up by Sylvie Scott's. Martin over to Burr. Burr tipping across. They're able to dig it up. Burr sets it up. Martin setting again. Scott's sending a spike. That's blocked up front by Creighton. Here's Taylor Bile. Scott's has to give Creighton the free ball. Here comes a spike by Creighton, and that is going to be a net violation there by the Blue Jays. Makes it 24-24 in set number 4. Megan Roggenkamp serving as the Jackrabbits make a comeback here in set number 4. Roggenkamp to the back row. That's a service ace for Megan Roggenkamp as Creighton can't make it happen in the back row. 25-24, going to be set point here for the Jacks. That forces Creighton to take a timeout. An amazing turn of events there. Madison Burr able to get it done. Megan Roggenkamp with the service ace. Roggenkamp had only 3 service aces last season. And Madison Burr, an amazing season for the Jackrabbits, had a hitting percentage of .316 and also contributed 211 kills for the Jackrabbits throughout the season. As a freshman, 25-24 the score. The Jackrabbits ahead now by 1 here in set number 4. Trailed for most of the set. Now making a comeback at the end when it counts. The Jackrabbits with the set point. Megan Roggenkamp back serving. Here's the serve. That tips the top of the net. Creighton's all over it. Here comes the spike across. Roggenkamp gets one arm on it. That's in play on the Creighton end. Here comes a spike. That one is going to be towards Creighton's favor as Madison Burr got a finger on it and it went out of bounds. 25 all here in set number 4. Creighton back serving. That's to the back row. That's Van Igdam. Here's Martin setting up Burr. Burr sends a spike across. Creighton is there for the dig. Here comes the spike back across. That's out of bounds, untouched. They're going to say the Jacks touched it. Up in the net. That's a point for Creighton. It's 26-25. Blue Jays Up by 1. It's set point for the Jays, potentially match point here. Here is Scott's. Martin. Van Igdam. Oh, through the block, Van Igdam able to spike it down. And a point for the Jackrabbits. It's 26-all as the Jacks fight to stay alive through this one. Riley Martin back behind the line and serving. Martin with the serve. That's to the back row. Here, Creighton spiking back across. That's Sylvie Zonks. Here, a tip across by Westover. That's to the back row, dug up by Creighton. Creighton sends back a spike. That hits Scott square in the chest and goes out of bounds on the Creighton side. That ball would have gone out of bounds, but Scott's in the wrong place at the wrong time there for the Jacks. 27-26, the Jacks down by 1, and it's going to be set point here for Creighton. Here, Rachel Weber bumps it up. That's Martin. Martin to Westover, tipping across. Creighton on the dig. Here, back across for Creighton. He's setting up the spike. That's out of bounds. Untouched by the Jackrabbit blockers. And we're at 27-27 in set number 4. Back behind the line, serving is Katie Van Igdam. That one dug up by Creighton. Spike across and inbounds, ruling by the flag. Although it didn't look like it was inbounds from my perspective. Point awarded to the Jays. 28-27. The Jacks down by 1. And potentially match point here for the Jays. Excuse me. Touch the microphone there. Van Igdam on the dig. Here is Scons. Scons gets it down in Creighton territory. Bile able to get it, and that one's out the back line. Out of bounds as Bile hit it a little bit too far, and the Jays are going to win this scrimmage game 29-27, the final score in set number 4. And Creighton beats the Jackrabbits 3-1. They played a full game here in First Bank and Trust. Handshakes all around for both teams there. The Jackrabbits played a very good game against the Big East Conference Bluejays and were able to defeat the Minnesota Golden Gophers earlier today, 2-1 in the 3-set scrimmage. So the Jays beat the Jacks here. The Jacks do take one set away from the Blue Jays, just like they did a week ago. Looking at what's coming up here for the Jackrabbits. I know I already said it, but I thought it was over after 3 sets. I didn't know we were going to play a surprise 4th. Coming up here in next week on Wednesday, Southwest Minnesota State coming here to take on the Jackrabbits at 7 p.m. in First Bank and Trust Arena. We'll have that for you on Collegiate Sports, so make sure to tune in for that one. And then on May 3rd, Saturday at 2 p.m., the Jackrabbits travel to Ord, Nebraska. They'll play in Ord High School, where they'll play the Nebraska Cornhuskers there for that game. And interestingly enough, Nebraska always travels around to different high schools and small towns throughout the state of Nebraska for their spring games. A little cool thing that the Nebraska volleyball team does. As the teams take pictures down on the court, Creighton and the Jackrabbits taking a picture, as these two teams have had a long-standing relationship throughout the years, whether that be through volleyball or basketball, always playing Creighton back and forth. At least the women's basketball team does. And the volleyball team often playing Creighton in spring matchups and non-conference play as well. But again, volleyball team next week against SMSU. We'll have it for you. Make sure you tune in. And then trying to get the Nebraska game for you from Ord as well. The next thing we'll have for you on Collegiate Sports, we're trying to get baseball versus Dakota Wesleyan in Brookings, South Dakota at 3 p.m. on the 9th. So we're trying to get that for you, and we should have it for you on Collegiate Sports. So if you want to tune in for baseball, that'll be the first time that I cover baseball here at SDSU. Should be a fun time. Other than that, we hope to see you for a volleyball game or a baseball game in the future. As always, I have been Ben Anderson for Collegiate Sports. Go big, go blue, go Jacks. Have a good night, everybody.